that's because I'm just flooded and inundated with all these ideas, and it's kind of like on one hand it's like a gold rush because I'm just so ecstatic and manic over all these ideas, and then on the other hand it's overwhelming and it's has weight. It's not stressful by any stretch. It's definitely more exciting, but they have weight because I feel like they're all really like just dancing inside my head, and they pull me, and they're demanding. And I have good days with this and I have bad days, or I have times where there's like I have 10 ideas all scratching to get out, and then I have days where I just have a few. I have a couple, but there's always like there's always something like burning. But right now I'm like in a place where I'm painting a bunch of pieces at once. So there's like 3 or 4 pieces all scattered around my easel, and I do a session, let that piece heal, and then I put on a new painting, either right after or let an hour or so go by, and then I come back and do another session on a whole other piece that's already kind of half cooked or half baked, and I just continue that process while I'm kind of in this state, this mental state, which is a combination of being totally discombobulated and also inspired. So, and I've kind of, as I get older, I've learned it seems to be a common theme for me, and I think it's taken me a while to adjust to this. And this piece, though, like for example, I thought it was worth kind of diving into it with you guys, because this piece really, I kind of break down my pieces into almost like a couple different categories. I even wrote them down. I had them like, so there's 3 categories that I kind of put my art into. There's plan, chaos, and then there's like being open and flexible and letting things, letting myself explore. And then there's like commitment and dedication and discipline. So with this one, I kind of thought it was going to be like I was going to be committed, or at least like it would be maybe a little bit flexible, because I thought that Little Britain dude was funny and an interesting portrait and simple and easy to kind of pull together for the most part. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to see this through. I want to see him come to life. And the initial stage that you see where he is coming to life, I did a couple sessions, maybe a couple hours max, on pulling him together, and not even consistently. Like I've had that piece kind of like over the course of the last couple days. It was a slow burn, so I would just put it on and only work on it. So I wouldn't even say a couple hours, and I would work on it. And I just thought, like, I anticipated it coming to, like, sticking to the original concept of just doing that portrait of the Little Britain guy. And then today I was so really overwhelmed, and this is kind of almost the element of the art being therapeutic, because I used the past sessions, and I got the portrait to where it was, but then I was just like, I'm going to derail this, I'm going to abuse this, I'm going to let myself just totally destroy, which again is not new for me. However, I usually know going into it that I'm going to do that. So I kind of, it's not as common for me to have a portrait that I think I'm going to finish and then destroy it, versus creating a portrait fully knowing that I was going to take it apart, like with the intention from the get-go that I'm going to paint Steve Buscemi and then just rip it to shreds. This case, I just found that here is a somewhat formed face that you see in the initial stages, and then I anticipated that to come to completion, but it didn't. I just used that as the blank canvas, and it just turned out so fun for me. Like it was it really put emphasis on, okay, do this again. Like create your blank canvas, but your blank canvas actually has a half completed portrait on it. And then I'm like, well, yeah, that's what I always do. That's it's kind of what, but I don't know why it just hit me differently, or maybe it made things more clear. Yes, paint a portrait and then wreck it. Paint a portrait and then wreck it. And it's almost like this note that I'm putting out there to those of you that are hearing this. It's almost just a note to myself: create a portrait and then wreck it, and use different references. And one thing that I think is really fascinating and really interesting is that, how do you wreck it? Well, when in doubt, add Batman, right? When in doubt, go to SpongeBob. When in doubt, Clarice Starling from Silence of the Lambs. You get the picture. It's just like start adding randomness events. Then you add the poetry, the words, the news headlines. You flood the piece with non sequiturs and chaos, and then you try to fix it, and then you destroy it more by scraping it and flooding it with mineral spirits and turpentine, and then you fix it, and so on and so on, and then things start to be come to life, or certain elements come to life and features, and you're like, oh, I like this, keep that, and then destroy that, and you just continue it until you love it. You wreck it and you abuse it until you love it. And there's a bit of mixed messaging as I hear myself say this all out loud, but I just think it was worth putting out there of, here's a portrait and then destroy it. And maybe that clarity, even though it's almost like I've been doing that for, countless years, just to have that, the portrait is the blank canvas. And let me just touch on those, like those three, the three ways that I approach paintings. I thought was also kind of a useful way to manage my thinking and how I approach my work. And I'll run them down again, but it's like I have a planned idea in my head of having a painting, a portrait, and then destroying it, or taking a painting in one direction, starting with a cartoon, even if it's not like a portrait of somebody, but a cartoon, and then setting out with the anticipation of then that being the starting point for the chaos. And the second option for me typically is having a portrait but knowing the end destination as well. So it's like, I'm going to take it here, here, and here. So having a roadmap, with the chaos, like knowing where I want to end up to some capacity, and that can even be rigid or a little loose, but just having a roadmap for the chaos. And then the third one is like dedication and discipline. Like, no, I'm going to paint a portrait and it's going to look like this by the end of it. And even if it's chaotic and everything is still predetermined from the outset. It's not, there's no loose, you don't let things, you don't allow things to be loose. And you want to keep disciplined and set out to complete the vision that you originally had. So I thought those are some cool things that would be worth breaking down with this piece. Because as it came to life, I noticed how much life it had in it, and I wanted to put into words as best as I can what I was like going through and what I was contemplating in my mind. And I don't feel like I've done the best job articulating it, but there was a lot of clarity that happened with this session, and I'm really happy with the outcome. I really love it when things come easy, even though it takes a lot of energy. I'm okay about expelling energy, but man, when things they start to come together and I see something that I really get attached to, that's such a beautiful feeling. Because sometimes pieces are empty, and it takes a long time and a lot of work and a lot of energy to find some attachment to it. final thoughts would be, I've had a lot of different ideas about what art is, and one of the ideas of the day, this will change dramatically all the time, but the idea of the day, if I had to describe what art is something you put your heart and soul into. And that's really open-ended, but something you put your heart and soul into. I think that's the definition of art. So I think that's really something worth investigating.